Hello, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Jillian McDonald and I channel the Akashic records. So I have already been filming today, so I'm already in the vibration of the records. You can check out my previous video on dolphins if you would like to get in on the vibes that we've already been sharing here today. But this next video is going to be about Atlantis. So I personally feel as though I have some connection to Atlantis. I believe that my soul was on Sirius at the time when the beings here on Earth were in Atlantis. And I know there is a ton of information about this subject. Like, even as I'm opening the records right now and I'm vocalizing to you guys about Atlantis, I can like feel the information about it. It's massive. So we're gonna start this topic here today. Now, if you have any questions on anything that I speak about today, please let me know in the comments. I guarantee I'm gonna be making more videos on Atlantis. But we're gonna get started today. All right, so Atlantis. Okay, so Atlantis existed around 12,000 years ago. Now, different beings might remember time differently because remember, time and space doesn't exist in these higher dimensions. So if you have a different feeling about when Atlantis existed, or you think it existed at a different time, that could be true for you, because time and space technically isn't real. But for our linear minds and for the purpose of the fact that Atlantis really did exist on Earth, it was around 12,000 years ago in Earth language. So Atlantis was a very civilized civilization. They were very technologically advanced. You can imagine like the colors of like blue and gold and white and silver and not pyramids per se, but like buildings made out of like rock. Almost like if you think about Greece and like the way that Greece looks right now, some of those white rock buildings and some of those rock archways, I'm thinking, and like all of these different kinds of things. Atlantis sort of looked like that. It can be hard for our human minds to comprehend Atlantis because it was run a lot differently than the world that we live in is run now. Now, Atlantis was more of a masculine civilization, so they were very much using consciousness. They were very connected to these higher realms conscious wise. They knew how to tap into energies and frequencies that were not of Earth. They knew how to, separate their humanness, their human body, their human mind from these higher vibrational realms, and they knew how to communicate with these higher vibrational realms. They knew how to use sound healing. They knew how to use sound to like manipulate things and shift things. They knew how to they spoke in a lot more frequency than with like physicality. There was a lot more that was deeply understood from these higher dimensions than what we have access, well, some of us have access to at this time here and now. So like they could access these higher frequencies and they knew how to work with them in order to create things, in order to thrive, in order to be successful as a civilization. Civilization was run differently. It wasn't a democracy. Everyone was it didn't start like that. So at the beginning, when Atlantis sort of began, it was like fairly peaceful and loving. There was hierarchy in a sense that there was people who sort of had, like, everyone kind of had their place, I guess you could say. Everyone sort of had their place with what they were doing. And there was a group of people that sort of had, let's say, power or control over the others. So there was a group of people who sort of like, they were like the wisdom keepers. They sort of had all of this higher information. They knew how to communicate with off-planet beings. They almost kind of, they're showing like they would like meet up in circles, and there was like this way of sharing information where it would like all gather in the middle. And like, what was the purpose? So Atlantis civilization, what was the purpose of it? Well, it was one of the first civilizations on Earth. Okay. So they were just trying to live. Yeah, they were just trying to like eat, survive, thrive, raise families. They were a lot like us in that way. They were just trying to they were just existing as humans do, but they had access to this technology from these higher states of vibration. So it's kind of, some of you who are listening are going to understand, because some of you who are listening are also tapped into these higher frequencies and these higher states of vibration, and you understand how you can like work with energies and work with intention and work, like you can manifest, and you can do a lot more when you're existing in these higher realms than you can when you're existing purely only from like the 3D type of mind. So eventually, certain people in Atlantis began to like it's like what always happens. It's like the age-old story of light versus dark. Even if you think about, the original angel wars, where Lucifer was like, hey, why does God get all the glory? Why can't I have the glory? It's like the ego, sort of wakes up. Why does God get the glory? Why can't I have the glory? If he can do it, why can't I do it? Why can't I be at the top of the food chain? And it's like, at the beginning of Atlantis, everything was peaceful. We were all getting along. We were all, like working with the technologies. A lot of people were really, involved in family. Like there's a really big family vibe coming from Atlantis to start off with, like large families. And then as time went on, a group of people began to understand that, like, hey, wait, why can't I use this information and this technology to, make myself better, make myself higher than, the ego started to develop and started to get involved. And these human beings, these Atlantean human beings, they had access to all of this higher consciousness, but they weren't necessarily of the higher consciousness. They were accessing it, but they were still human beings on Earth, which means because they were on Earth, they were still subject to the emotional spectrum that we have here, the vast amounts of dark as well as the vast amounts of light. They were very much like just like we have. They had all that, right? And so what started as like, oh, look at this technology, and like the Syrians, like Atlantis was one of the first civilizations. So they were doing what we are doing. So we are trying to raise the consciousness of the planet, right? From a higher perspective, that's what we're doing. Not everyone knows that's what we're doing, but that's what we're doing. Now, Atlanteans, same thing. The off-planet beings like the Syrians and Pleiadians were more involved with Lemuria, but the Syrians specifically, and there were some Anunnaki, and there were some other beings that were also kind of involved in this. So they, okay. Yeah, okay, so now, because I asked about the Anunnaki, because originally, humans were created as a slave race. They were created by the Anunnaki to mine gold originally. And then as we do, they began to evolve, okay? And so eventually the Anunnaki got what they needed. And, the Galactic Federation sort of got involved. The Galactic Federation was like, okay, Anunnaki, you've got what you need. You are no longer needing to mine gold from Earth now. The reptilians, you'll have to check out my previous video on the Galactic Federation if you want to know a little bit more about the reptilians and the Anunnaki and how that worked. But oh, wait. I might not have even shared... Sorry, all over the place. I might not have even shared that video here. You might have to check out my Patreon if you want to know more about the reptilians and the Anunnaki and all of that kind of stuff. My Patreon is where you'll find that information because I don't share it on YouTube. However, the reptilians, they went underground. They were gone. Now the humans are kind of here, existing. And so they did colonize. They did separate and colonize and go to different parts of the planet. And yeah. So they went to different parts of the planet. So even though we know about Lemuria and Atlantis, there was also other colonies around the planet as well. It wasn't just Lemuria and Atlantis. Those are just kind of like the more well-known ones. And when Atlantis was wiped out, not all of the beings were wiped out. Some of the beings from Atlantis were actually able to escape, and they were able to go to Egypt or to other areas on the planet. And same with Lemuria. I don't personally know as much about Lemuria. I'm really excited to make that video. Yes, so the purpose of Atlantis was evolution of consciousness, just like all civilizations on Earth. The purpose of human beings is evolution of consciousness. That's why we're here. We're here to help Earth evolve. So we're all here because Earth wants us here. If Earth didn't want us here anymore, we wouldn't be here anymore. But ultimately, we have consciousness, and so we are the best bet that Earth has at evolving. Anytime that a civilization is wiped out, Earth has to start brand new from baseline, like bacteria, right? Every time that human beings are wiped out, we start again as bacteria, and everything has to evolve again. So Earth and these off-planet beings are doing their best to not have that happen for any of us, because ultimately we are the most conscious and the best bet that Earth has at evolving more quickly. And of course, when we're here on Earth, we are an extension of Earth. So the Atlantean beings were no different. They were an extension of Earth. They were a colony that was created after the Anunnaki originally created humans, and their consciousness started to evolve. And they started to get access to technology, to these very high frequency technologies. So they were able to like manifest instantly. They were able to communicate with beings on the other side. They were able to create things. It was a lot about creation. There was a lot about how to create things more quickly using consciousness and using technology. So as this was happening, of course, humans evolving, some of them, their egos got involved, and Atlanteans actually became quite power hungry, and they began using this technology not necessarily for good. And when COVID happened in 2020, this was very traumatizing for a lot of the souls who had been on Atlantis previously, because it was sort of similar to what started happening there, where these beings started taking advantage of the technology and yes. What I'm asking right now is, why was COVID so traumatizing for Atlantean beings? Yes, because it was, how is it the same? Okay. So looking at COVID, it was, you know, this virus that outbroke, but it was very much sort of a replica of what happened at Atlantis, where there was this shift in consciousness, because that's what happened during COVID. There was a shift in consciousness. Human beings, there was sort of a split, and human beings had the choice to sort of evolve into these higher dimensions or to stay in these lower dimensions of like fear and scarcity. So there was kind of a split in consciousness, and a lot of beings did choose to sort of rise up. Now, similar thing happened in Atlantis. There came a point where there was all this new information, there's all this new technology, and there was this split in consciousness where the technology started to kind of like outperform what? Okay, what is happening? So yeah, certain beings started getting more awareness than other beings, started seeing the bigger picture, started seeing what was happening, started seeing how they could control people, how they could dominate over people, how they could use this information that they have and this technology that they have to start to control others. So it was very much like this one group of beings in Atlantis started to shift. So they started to like be like, wait a second, if all of this is possible and we're all living in harmony, like what happens if I have more power, or if I have more ego, or if I, like, how can I use this to sort of like control over the others? And they started developing and controlling things, and it all started happening at a very rapid pace. And you know, similarly to now, you can see how technology has evolved for us over the last however many years, and it's evolving very quickly. And you know, we can use technology for good, or we can use technology for bad, and there are ways to use technology to like assert over others. And so what happened was, this started happening in Atlantis, and it sort of has repeated itself now. However, the only difference is that Earth is at a much different place energetically, where she is ready to expand into this higher vibrational consciousness. And the beings that are off planet that are also helping Earth with her consciousness don't want us to have to start over from zero again. So there are beings from off planet who are sort of interfering with what's going on now to make sure that we are moving more in the direction of the light and more in the direction of this higher vibrational consciousness. So what happened there? What happened then is that these beings started to use technology in a way that was like too quick, too much, too interfering. It was happening way too fast, and there was kind of like a boom that happened, like this like boom of energy that just like it was energy that just like exploded off Atlantis, like it like rippled out. And did Atlantis sink? Yeah, it sunk. It was like the technology, the frequency, the field was too much to handle for the structural foundations that they had built, and everything began to crumble and sink. Some beings foresaw this happening, and they chose to escape and go to other places and start over. So not the entire civilization was not wiped out then. Like, human beings were not completely wiped out. They did choose to go to other places throughout the world. Many of them were wiped out at that point, but it was all happening for the highest good, because basically human beings were given too much too fast. They weren't using it for good. They were using it for not good. Earth's field didn't like that. Earth's frequency didn't like that. It didn't line up with where Earth was going. And so, yeah, like everything collapsed and everything fell. And a lot of people died, and a lot of people didn't make it. And that form of technology and information was erased from the planet. And the beings who did escape, who had this information, you know, they went to places like, started building the pyramids in Egypt, like started trying to reconnect with these off-planet beings, with these Syrian beings, and like they started trying to rebuild, but the frequency of Earth had shifted at that point, and they weren't able to access it in the same way. So they began accessing this information in different ways. That's why they had to build these pyramids, right? The pyramids were created to, as well, for many reasons, but the pyramids were their best bet at replicating what they had in Atlantis, because a lot of what was happening in Atlantis was not physical. A lot of it was like energetic and technology and beyond the physical. And it sort of like expanded too much, too fast in the wrong way for the physical body to be able to hold and for the physical planet to be able to hold. So then when they sort of restarted in these other places like Egypt and all over the world, they had to build these massive physical things to be able to hold this type of technology and information. And even then, they did have access to technology that we don't have access to right now on Earth, like these like Egyptian type civilizations. They did have access to this, and we are starting to get more access to this. There's a lot happening that's like waking up, sound healing, and connecting to higher consciousness, and manifestation, and all of this stuff. This is all starting to happen again for us humans, but it is happening a lot more slowly this time around than it happened last time around. So yes, ultimately what happened in Atlantis is some beings got power hungry and started trying to use this technology and these gifts for their own personal benefit, for their own game. They were doing too much, too fast, too soon, wasn't in alignment with Earth's frequency, and ultimately Earth crumbled it. That's ultimately what happened. Some beings went underground at this point. Some beings, there was even reptilian beings influencing this in Atlantis. Okay, yeah. Like some of these more like power hungry control things, that was actually reptilian beings, just like we have right now on Earth happening. That was happening in Atlantis. So what is stopping this from happening again now? We have Earth has healed herself to become a place where she can hold more of these frequencies now. So it's Earth herself has ascended to a place where like she technically is in control of all of this. And so she has now ascended to a place where even if the technology is moving at a faster rate, she's already in a higher state of consciousness. So there's not as much risk of it going the other way. And if it does start to go the other way too much, like ultimately, same thing's going to happen. Humans are going to be wiped out again. But that's not going to happen because we've come so far as a collective that these other like off-planet beings, and there's so many of us here now, so many of us off-planet beings that are here now, are really anchoring in these frequencies of love and of healing and of all of these like really positive fifth dimensional plus frequencies. And so there's enough of us here now where it's really going to take a lot for the Earth to decide to wipe us all out again and start again, because like we're all extensions of Earth, right? And so just like we go through our healing and our phases, technically we are some of the most high conscious beings that are here on Earth. So Earth has the best chance to evolve with us still being here. And there's enough of us, and she's evolved to such a place where that's the direction that we're going. Whereas back then, humans were a little bit more new on Earth, and yeah, it happened too quickly. Yeah, okay, cool. A lot of beings here. The one thing that I'm kind of stuck on is with the COVID, because I remember when COVID was happening, it was traumatizing for a lot of humans because they were in Atlantis, but I don't remember why. Right now, I'm almost trying to put myself back into the frequency of COVID and like what was happening at that time. And like, why was that a parallel to Atlantis? Because it was ultimately the time, because it was ultimately the time where the split happened. Just like it happened back then. And either we could have evolved into this higher vibration, which we have, or everything was going to crumble and collapse and we were going to be kaput. That's why. Okay, that was when that big split really happened. And that split also happened in Atlantis, but everything happened way too fast, too soon, and then it went the other way back then. But that's not going to happen now. And it didn't happen. You know, we're going the other way. So that's really awesome. Cool. All right, I think that's all for now. Please let me know your questions because it really helps me to have questions to ask, whereas right now I'm just opening up the records and I'm asking them to share with me whatever's for the highest good. But if I could have some of your questions, that would really help me with being able to go deeper and being able to get more information that's more specific, because like I said, there is so much information and sometimes it can be quite difficult to decipher exactly what they're sharing with me because it's from such a different vibration and time and space doesn't exist there. So yeah, hopefully this video made sense. Hopefully you enjoyed. Please let me know in the comments what you thought. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you're wanting more of that, you know, woo-woo, not allowed on, you can check out my Patreon. I'm going to be sharing another video there very shortly. Yeah, so have a great day. We'll see you in the next one.